another deep, multifaceted question. What is your general view on granting sole source contracts for goods and services needed by the city? And the follow-up, is there a specific maximum dollar amount, a threshold, which in any contract it becomes subject to an RFP process?
I'd have to give more consideration to that than what we probably have time for here. I'd say with many things, if we're talking about consumables or computers or whatever else, you got to consistently, not an annual contract, but every 90 days have a review. Because right now, sometimes we'll get a deal on computers, and it's a deal the first day of the contract, and even the 30th day of the contract, 6 months into the contract, it's not a deal anymore. We could do a better job just going down to Office Depot and picking it up. But it's going to take a little more analytical mind looking at these contracts before they're let. And the notion of signing long-term contracts, because that was a big deal, I think, on the landfill thing. You can't sign a contract 20, 30, 40 years out in the future and have it be a cost-plus contract and think we're going to be doing okay. We're making too many obligations like that with our long-term obligations, and we're not accepting the potential consequences today. So I think the consequences, authority and responsibility should always be coupleted together. If you're going to grant the authority to expend monies, then the responsibility should be stuck with the individuals that let the authority to begin with. You can't, if we have 4-year terms of office, doggone it, the contracts ought to be as closely limited to that as possible on the huge contracts. And I'm sorry, again, I feel like I haven't touched all the issues you'd like for me to, but 15 minutes is kind of
It is not much time. We only have 4.5 left. Don, if you care to ask the question.
What would you do to encourage transparency and public access to government and public participation in the legislative process?
Here's a proposition I've put on the table, and I've only had one person about come unglued so far. Every single dollar in, every single dollar out, published, searchable database. Right now you can do that on only a small portion of what's going into and out of the city. But if public funds go into it, ends up in a sub-agency or even in a grant, public funds go into it, don't we deserve to know who got the money at the end of the day? Don't we deserve to know how that money was spent? Again, if it's City Hall, or if it's the Sheriff's Office, or if it's some sub-agency, or if it's grant recipient, it's public money. Why in the world would we not deserve to know? And on the every dollar inside, that's less important to a lot of people. It's important to me because I like to know where the dollars are coming from. You have some folks in this town that are treated like money bags for the city, and many times are abused because of that.
Well, we're the choir on that one. Conrad.
What distinguishes you from your opponents and specifically makes you and not them the right choice for the voters in your contest?
I've got a nice mix in that my business history is pretty extensive. Public service, I've served multiple times on the Soil and Water Conservation District. I was elected to the Civil Service Board, but divested the seat because they created an appointed board that, by the way, has cost the city of Jacksonville millions and millions of dollars, and we were supposed to be saving money. Nonetheless, the Soil and Water Conservation District, pursuant to state statute, has had taxing authority since 1953. I made sure, as member of that board, I always fought against, and as chairman of that board, made sure it never took place, the use of that taxing authority, because as far as I'm concerned, we don't need one more person reaching into people's wallets. But I also took the dollars that were coming in 2006, pushed for a budget reduction. We reduced our budget voluntarily by 18%. That was my pursuit, and I had our treasurer actually do a lot of the legwork and helped fantastically. Came back to the table, I wanted 25%, we ended up with 18% voluntary reduction in our budget. And I use that as a challenge because at that time in 2006, we kind of saw the foreshadowing of these times to come. And I wanted to see that as a challenge to other agencies and offices to do the same thing. Obviously, my challenge was not met. But by the way, in my time with the Soil and Water Conservation District, being elected twice and appointed once, I never missed a single meeting. And they gave me a huge paycheck, the big bagel, zero. And I don't mind that. That's service, and that's what public service should be. Anything else?
This is the last question.
Assuming that you are endorsed by our organization, what actions, if any, would you take to inform the electorate?
It's a badge of honor. That, as far as I'm concerned, if we've got the little logo we can put on these, that's great. if it's going on the website or whatever, that's, I appreciate what y'all are doing. It takes a lot to take time out of your schedule. I know y'all are getting the big bagel for the paycheck too, right?
Yes.
Negative.
Yeah.
That takes a level
We
of
get
commitment.
double time on overtime.
Yes,
No.
I voted to double my paycheck a couple of times, I think. That was the joke. You know, we can double zero many, many times and still have zero, so.
Well, I want to congratulate you. We still have 45 seconds left, so clearly you would be able to successfully debate on the city council.
I'm
the
happy-
time allotted
I'm happy
you.
to.
So, anything else, anybody, particular?
I have one question going back to the pension.
Okay.
Are you in favor of a 401k type program?
I like the idea of a
pension?
defined contribution versus a defined benefit. I'm not sure exactly how that's gonna fit into contracts and everything else. Our problem is they've locked so many things into long-term contracts, we have a mess. Everybody, most everybody in the private sector has grown accustomed to the notion of a defined contribution. Well, we've locked it into a defined benefit with an 8.5% rate of return. That's, I don't know if that's both of them or just fire and police, but certainly chaos has been created because a lot of people have not been paying attention.
One final thing, I have the candidates pledge to taxpayers of Duval County. These are a couple pledges that we came up with. They bear no consideration on this committee's decision to endorse any candidate. It's just something for you to take home, read at your leisure. If you feel comfortable with any of these, you can sign it and return it, or you can throw it away. But again, it bears no consideration on endorsement.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.